All right. Hello, and welcome. I'm here today with Emily Tom from Ottawa. Hi, Emily.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. And Emily just, like, as in the last couple of days, ran this amazing event for the Ottawa chapter called the BA Hack-a-thon. And it was all about helping business analysts help a nonprofit organization. And I was just really inspired when I met you at BBC and you were talking about this event. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. And I thought it could really benefit our community
Sure.
as well as just the business analysis profession as a whole, learning more about these events and how they come to be.
Sure.
Kick us off by just talking about how did this even come about?
Yeah, the inspiration continues.
Yeah.
So how this came about, I'm the past president of the IIBA Ottawa IIBA chapter. I've been on the board for more than 7 years now. And it's something that I thought was useful because I know our BA community and I understand its strengths and what the community has to offer. And I knew about hackathons in the traditional sense, in Silicon Valley with the tech companies like letting their developers have free reign on what to produce for their companies. So I thought, why don't we leverage the skills and the knowledge of our local BAs to do the same thing for an organization? And I thought, what better way to do this than to do some work, some pro bono work for a nonprofit organization? So out of this, the idea of doing a BA hackathon, which our chapter has named BA Blitz, has come about. So what we did was we assembled 21 BAs to come together to do some free business analysis work for a nonprofit organization, Women's Economic Council, and they are a Canada-wide organization. And basically everyone descended upon Ottawa to do some business analysis work to help advance WEC in their mission and vision.
Yeah, and that's just phenomenal. Some of the challenges that I often hear is like, it's business analysis, right? Does it apply to a nonprofit? And how do we get that nonprofit to see the value of the work? I mean, obviously, if they brought in people and you brought in people, like everybody was seeing the value in this. So how did you position that to both the Women's Economic Council and the business analysts that volunteered?
We actually put a lot of thought into this. We produced a flyer. We prepared a flyer that talks about the benefits to the business analysts in the community. They benefit, all the BAs ranging from the senior BAs, intermediates, all the way down to the novices.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting experience to work with a real life problem. And in a hackathon format, they're allowed to use any tools and techniques and tasks that they wish in order to solve a set of problems. So there's great benefit for these BAs to roll up their sleeves and learn from each other and produce something good for the community. And I have to admit, it did take a little bit of effort to sign on WEC as a partner or to get a nonprofit organization to join us in this pilot project. The profile of a nonprofit organization is they're always really busy.
Mm-hmm.
They're short on resources. So many of these organizations didn't have time to sit down and meet with us. But we were very fortunate to have Women's Economic Council meet with us and try this out. For them, the value proposition is to have a fresh set of eyes, teams of BAs who have the skill set to come and solve business problems or opportunities.
Yeah, and so they got excited about that.
Yes, and I was really appreciative that they were willing to try this out. It was a complete experiment, but what was great was that we had collaborated with them ever since the beginning. So over about a 3-month period, we worked with WEC to understand their organization. I had a couple of senior BAs do some preliminary analysis on their organization, what their profile was like, what are some of their challenges. We prepared a case study that was the focus of the BA Blitz event day. So working with WEC ahead of time to understand their organization was instrumental in having a good set of problems to work with on that one hackathon day.
Right, so you kind of came into the day with problems that they were hoping to have solved.
Right, and I also gave WEC the reassurance that, we're going to assemble a group of BAs, 3-4 teams to come together, and they're coming with a skill set that nonprofits might not have considered when trying to address their business problems or opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what was their expectation coming into the event?
They were rather open-minded. I think that having met with them doing the preliminary analysis, they saw where this was going. The kinds of thoughtful questions that we were able to ask them ahead of time gave them the reassurance that we had their interests in mind when coming up with recommendations.
Mhm.
And, as a BA, as a good BA, what my team had done was we had ensured there was transparency. So every step of the way, we told them, what we were planning to do, what involvement we expected from them, and how we might circle back if things needed to be changed. So we're with them right from the beginning, and the collaboration led up to the big event day.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to share about like what happened before the event, or should we walk through the structure of the event now?
Well, I'll say that there's quite a lot of logistics involved. Our chapter is pretty strong at running workshops and PD events. However, this was something a little different. There wasn't an actual instructional portion of this, and we had to work really hard at thinking about, what are the types of participants that we wanted to come and join us. So we put a lot of thought into this. We structure our event carefully. The wording of the event was such that it brought a good variety of people. And I think that's important to have the diversity, because having 21 people in the room with different perspectives led to a lot of different solutions.
Yeah, I can bet, in different skill levels too, right?
That's right.
So did you mix the skill levels in the team? So like newer BAs were learning from more senior BAs?
Yeah, that was one of the logistical things we had set up. Our chapter uses an event management system to sell tickets. So we structured our event tickets all at the same price, a very nominal fee, for different BA levels to sign up. So we'd have participants signing up with their respective BA experience levels, and we ensured that we had at least one senior BA per team, and that's how we set up the tables at the actual event.
Okay. So you only had spots for X people at X level, and so you
That's right.
Curated who was there.
That's right.
Yeah,
and it turned out really well. I mean, that was the feedback we got from people offline during the event as well, that they appreciated having that mix of experience and knowledge background.
Yeah. So lots of planning went into this. Lots of business
That's right.
Went into
That's
this.
Right. Now I've written everything down, or I'm in the process of writing everything down, so that we'll be able to replay this.
Very good. So how did the day go? Sounds like you had four different teams. Is that right?
We ended up with 3 teams.
Okay.
There were 3 major business topics to cover. And so each team had been assigned one particular area to cover. And so amongst the team, there were maybe, 5 or 6 people. And it was interesting because you would see that they gelled right away, even though half the people in the room were new to the whole group. So there was a lot of cohesiveness. You would see people, writing on sticky notes at their desks, or, going up to the wall and moving their sticky notes on the business model canvas. So you could see the definite teamwork there. Yeah. And it went on from beginning to end all the way through lunch.
Okay. And can you share, I don't want to step into any confidentiality concerns, but what would an example problem that they were working on be?
Okay. Well, I mean, a very common problem for nonprofit organizations is funding. They're funded typically through foundations or governments or other types of charities. In our case, Women's Economic Council gets most of their funding from the government. So funding is always a challenge. They're given a set amount of dollars that they have to work with, and they're a small number of people, and they have to make those dollars stretch.
Right. So you were working on a problem to obtain more funding, or to use that funding in a very efficient way to deliver the services.
We stayed rather high level in our business case, in our case study, and the teams took it where they wanted to. So that particular team, they actually did address both sustainability and, getting new funding and stretching the dollars that they already have.
Gotcha. Okay. So they had the license to kind of look at how to solve really a very high level business objective versus maybe what we might think of as the scope of a particular project. And
that's right.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
and as a BA, we're used to looking at problems from all the different angles, and they came up with all kinds of solutions and issues. And as a good BA, they went through a whole prioritization exercise. Right?
Yeah.
This particular team, they used some dot voting to vote on which particular areas that they felt were the most important for the organization to focus on.
Right. And now were stakeholders from the organization also involved?
Yes. So that was extremely helpful. Two of the people from WEC were in the room, and they were there to provide feedback, input. They were there for consultation, and it was very useful for the teams because they could get clarification on the problems. And it also bounced ideas off the two stakeholders, would this kind of solution work? So it was really nice to have them in the room. And as well, they could also see business analysis in action.
Now, what was the final output or deliverable that they created?
So we were thinking of making it a competition, but we didn't. We wanted to give everyone a fair shot of being praised for doing a good job. So what happened as at the end of the day, each team presented how they did their analysis, which techniques and tasks they performed. They provided their assessment of the problem, and they also provided recommended solutions. So that was really cool. Two teams were they were very keen in putting together PowerPoint slides right away in 10 minutes. Another team did a full business model canvas in the as-is and to-be scenarios. So that was really interesting. And so I also emphasized to the teams that they were to also think about solutions. As BAs, typically we kind of step back and only constrain ourselves to thinking about requirements. But I was pushing these folks to come up with solutions because that was our expected outcome to give to WEC so that WEC could run off and execute them.
Right.
So WEC has a whole bunch of homework to do.
I'm sure, that overwhelm of oh my gosh, so many great ideas, right?
So they have handouts, they have PowerPoint slides that they can work with.
Right. So will there be some ongoing engagement there?
So our work isn't completely done. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a lessons learned exercise, of course. And we're going to be meeting with WEC to review the recommendations that came from the teams, help prioritize and make sense of what these recommendations were so that WEC can go ahead and execute. I would like to circle back with them over the next couple of months or a year from now to see how that worked. That's all part of our solution validation, right? So to see how that worked and see if we can provide further assistance.
That's awesome. And I know obviously you're going to be meeting with them more to get their reactions and things, but any initial assessment from them of what they felt like the outcome or the value was of the hack-a-thon or the BA Blitz? So one of the things that struck us is that each of the teams, when they were interviewing with the subject matter experts from WEC, is that the teams were asking very specific questions to understand the problems. And the feedback from WEC was that these BAs were being very gentle and kind and asking about these problems and not finger pointing and pointing out the weaknesses of the organization. And I think that's one of the strengths of business analysts. We do customer empathy. And that's what we saw in the room. There was a lot of customer empathy, thinking about the organization and coming up with solutions that are appropriate for them. Now, WEC also commented that these are a lot of things that they had thought about in the past, but never really wrote down and never really prioritized. So it was really nice having the teams come together and provide recommendations on prioritization. Very cool. And what about the participants? What did they, how did they feel at the end of the day?
Exhausted.
Sure. So was it a full day event or a half day?
It was a full day event.
Yeah, I can see.
It was a full day event. A lot of participants, they stated that they learned a lot. They learned about the nonprofit sector, and it's actually quite big in Canada. There was a Stats Canada report back in 2007 that said about 7% of Canada's GDP flows through nonprofit organizations. So it's a lot of money. These teams learned about the nonprofit sector, some of the challenges that are unique to that sector as opposed to for-profit or public sector, which our community is more used to.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned about that, and I think there was some interest in serving that sector even more going forward. So there was that learning experience. There was also learning and mentorship happening between the different levels of BAs.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I can imagine
they certainly appreciated that.
Yeah, if you're at that entry level, you've
Mm-hmm.
probably never seen something like a business model canvas, right?
Right.
So to see that in action and watch somebody do it and be able to participate in that would be a big experience.
And it was also refreshing for some people to be given free rein to use whatever techniques they wished. Oftentimes in our industry here in Ottawa, we're constrained to certain techniques. When we actually do real work for a real organization. But in this case, they were doing real work for a real organization, but they were allowed to apply any of the 50 techniques in the BABOK and more.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they appreciated that because it stretched their creativity.
Yeah, that's great. And how about for the chapter? What's the value add for the chapter?
Lots of exposure. Mm-hmm. Now we're being asked when we're going to do the next one, which I'm not sure. We have to. I'm working on writing up a playbook to allow our chapter to do it again without starting from zero. So hopefully that'll be easier next time. And we're going to share this playbook with other IIBA chapters because we feel that there's a lot of value to doing this kind of event in different regions across the world.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
So,
that'll be a hugely valuable asset.
Yeah. So we do believe in chapters helping chapters. Mm-hmm. And it's also creating exposure for our other events too, because we're able to cross-promote some of the other events that we're running in the next couple of months.
That's exciting. What do you have coming up in the next couple of months?
Oh, we have our holiday social, of course. Mm-hmm. We have our monthly study groups happening. We have our monthly topic presentations as well. There's a topic presentation happening in January on storytelling.
Okay.
So that should be quite interesting. And we also do a speed recruiting event every year. So as opposed to speed dating with speed recruiting, where we line up different, 5 or 6 different employers or recruiters, and we run job seekers through them in a fast pace. So that's exciting.
It sounds like you just have a phenomenal chapter. And, I've worked with various chapters across mostly the USA and some in Canada. And, there's varying levels of maturity and all of them are hugely valuable to that local community. But when I see chapters doing things like yours, it's really like the next level. So
well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Sometimes you take risks and it works out. So yeah. It's a lot of fun. We like to share our results with other people as well so that, they can learn from them as well.
Yeah. And then final question, what about for you personally? Like, obviously you put a ton of work and effort into this. What's been the reward for you?
Oh, for me, when I came up with the idea of doing this hackathon, I always had faith in the BAs in our community. And I really wanted to create that level of awareness that this is something that we can use to take the BA profession forward. Expose what we can do for the community. So I'm hoping that this is just one example of all the creative things that I want to do.
Yeah, I love it. So it's really about establishing the value and the recognition of the profession.
Yes.
Through demonstrating it for this organization.
That's right. I think BAs can be extremely flexible, and that's what we're trying to do with all these creative types of events.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I appreciate this time to talk about our event. I hope that this will have a positive ripple effect across the world through the different chapters. So I'm counting on some chapters on taking this up and running it on themselves. Running it on themselves, yeah.
And if people do have questions and want to get in touch with you about that, what is the best way to do that?
Our chapter's on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. We can include the link to that too if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot and I'm inspired by what you put into organizing such an amazing event and how relevant, of course, business analysis is in any kind of organization, right, including a nonprofit organization.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.